Hello, I'd like to go over the Chapter 2 notes. Notice that these are already filled in, so I'm just going to kind of go over them, but you're welcome to check out the blank ones and fill them in yourselves. So let's see what we got. So here we're talking about visualizing variation in numerical data. The distribution of a sample is data is simply a way of organizing the data. Frequency is the count, or how many times the value occurred in the collection of data. And what we're going to look at first is creating a dot plot. A dot plot is a graphical summary. It's basically a picture of what's going on. If we show a bunch of numbers, people may not get the idea, but if we organize it, people may understand and be able to analyze the data. So I asked my class, how many hours of sleep do you get at night? And here we have all the responses. And we have the average hours of sleep. So a dot plot, we would look at the lowest number. So in this case, it's 5. And the largest number, which is 10. So to make a dot plot, we're going to label hours of sleep from 5 all the way to 10. And for every value, we're going to put a dot plot. So notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 6s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 7s. 1 8, 2 9s, and 2 10s. So to make a dot plot, you label the values you have, and above each value you put a dot to represent that value. Now instead of a large selection of numbers that are all mixed up, we can look at an organized representation in the dot plot. Okay. Another one we can make is something called a histogram. Histogram is another graphical summary for numerical data, and it's a picture of what's going on. So let's say we first organize the data. So we're going to make these bins. So let's say we're looking at an organization and its members are, let's say, over 40. So we make these bins. So between 40 and 44, we have 2 members. Between 45 and 49, we have 6 members. Between 55 and 59, we have 12 members. Between 60 and 64, we have 7 members. Between 65 and 69, we have 3 members. And then somebody came in later, that's between 75 and 79. So there's a little space there, 1 person. So to make a histogram, on the x-axis, we're going to put our ages. And notice I went from 40 to 45, even though that the group is 40 to 44. It's because after 44, we're in the next group. So I'm putting these values here when the next group begins. So 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. Then we go to 75 and 80. Then on the y-axis, we put the count, the how many. So notice there are 2 people between 40 and 44. As soon as you turn 45, you're in the next group that has 6. As soon as you turn 50, you're in the next group that has 13. As soon as you turn 55, you're in the next group that has 12. As soon as you turn 60, you're in the next group that has 7. As soon as you turn 65, you're in the next group that has 3. Notice there's nobody between 70 and 75. And then at 75 to 80, there's 1 person. Notice we can now look at the distribution of the data, and there is a space here. That space shows that there's no one here, that this data is outside the normal flow. So this can be considered an outlier. So there's your histogram. Now the question is, how can I make that histogram in the calculator? So let me show you. So I have my calculator here, and I'm going to enter the data into the calculator. So to do that, I'm going to turn the calculator on. I'm going to hit Stat, number 1 for edit, and I'm going to put that data in the list. But notice I have things already in my list, so there are 2 ways to get rid of that stuff. I can first delete the contents, but if you notice it's taken a little while to delete all these numbers, but I can delete the contents. Or the faster way, I can go to the top of the list and clear the contents. Clear and then enter. But be careful, do not go to the top and hit delete, because then you'll delete the entire column. So we're going to put our data in list 1. So I'm going to do 90, enter. 79, enter. Now order does not matter in this case. 95, enter. 93, enter. 80, enter. 100, enter. 85, enter. 88, enter. And 70, enter. Now there are 9 values. 9 values here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 9 values here. Double, triple check your numbers. So step 1, put the data in the calculator. Notice I've also given you step by step how to do it here, so you can kind of follow along. So now we have the data in the calculator. Step 2, we hit second y equals. Notice all the plots are off. You can do up to 3 plots. We're going to do the first plot, plot number 1. Notice off is highlighted, which means it's off right now. We want to turn plot 1 on by hitting enter on. We're going to make a histogram, so I hit down to the right. I'm going to choose this picture, which is our histogram. Push down, our data is in list 1. Now let's say our data was in list 2. Notice list 2 is here, it's either blue or yellow. So if you want to do list 2, second 2. Or hit clear, list 3, second 3, clear. But our data is in list 1. Notice you can do up to 6 lists. Frequency is 1, we're going to leave that alone. And then I'm going to move it up, up, up. Now a shortcut to make your window is to hit zoom 9. A benefit of zoom 9, everyone's calculator will look the same. A downside of zoom 9 would be you can't make your own window. But we'll talk about how to make a window later. So for right now, we'll move our cursor up here so we don't get any other options. And we'll press zoom 9, just to show you 9 is zoom stat. And there's your histogram. And if you notice, we've drawn it here, but you'll notice this one's labeled. So to get that labeling, you're going to hit trace, and you'll notice that this bar starts at 70, ends at 77.5, and there is 1 person in that group. So between 70 and 77.5, there's 1. The next, 75 to 85, 2 people. 85 to 92.5, 3 people. 92.5 to 100, 2 people. And 100 to 107.5, 1 person. And then you can label it here. Test scores, count, and all the labeling. Another one we can do is something called a stem plot. And what a stem plot is basically how to make a histogram, but on your own, without using the calculator. So I collected some data. How many minutes does it take you to get from school to your home? So I asked people, how long does it take? So here's all our values. Then what I did is, since the lowest is 0 and the highest is 100, notice to make a stem plot, also known as a stem and leaf plot, the stem goes here, the leaf goes here. So we have this line here. And what we're creating is a zeros row, a ones row, and a twos row, all the way up to 10 to represent the 100. So the numbers that begin with a 0, so if I have a 0 or a single digit number, I have 0, 0, 0, 4, 0, 6, and then 1. So I have 10, 14, 15, 15, 15, 15. Notice I have 4 15s all represented. I have a 16. I have an 18. I have a 19. These are all the ones. And then for the 20s, notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4 20. So I put 0, 20, 20, 20, 20. I have 2 25s. I have a 28. And then the 3s, I have a 30, 45, 50, 60. I have nothing in the 70s. I have nothing in the 80s, so I leave it blank. Nothing in the 90s. Then my largest is 100, so I put 10, 0. So it's kind of like a histogram. And if you turn your head to the side, this way for you, you'll notice that it looks exactly like a histogram, but we can do it by hand. But we also have something called a split stem plot. So let's say we had too many people in a row, like the ones. There's so many people, or twos. So we can split that by making a 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. Now I'm not going to do all the data. I'm going to stop with the 3s. And notice that I split it. Now when I split it, we have a lower and an upper. The lower is anything from 0 to 4, and the upper is anything from 5 to 9. So 0 and 4 would go in the lower. 6 would go in the upper. 0, 4 would go in the lower ones. 5, 5, 5, 5, 6, 8, 9 would go in the upper ones. The lower 20s would be all the 20s. And then the 5, 5, 8 would go in the upper. And then we have the 30. And then there's nothing in the upper 30s. And that's it for this lesson.